Well, hello and welcome to Boomer Banter, where we have real talk about aging well. I am your host, Wendy Green, and every week we have honest conversations about what it really means to grow older in today's world, navigating health, purpose, relationships, caregiving, and everything in between. And I hear from people all the time that think something's wrong with them because retirement feels boring or lonely or like it's just off. But here's the truth, like losing structure, losing your identity from your career and or even motivation after a major life change like retirement, that's not failure. That's transition. And you have not lost your value. You've simply stepped into a space where old routines don't fit anymore. This is a natural and temporary part of adjusting to a transition. And if you would like to talk more about this, you can schedule a 30-minute complimentary discovery call with me. And I promise you will leave with a little more clarity about what transitions are and how they affect us, and what could be an exciting new beginning for you. So I will include the link to my calendar in the show notes where we can set up a 30-minute complimentary discovery call. All right. So, you know how for wellness, we are told to eat right and exercise and manage stress. And then those are kind of tickets to age well. But what about creativity? Could playing the piano or creating a beautiful garden or even making a new dessert really keep your brain sharp and your spirits high? Well, my guest today, Leigh Hodgins, believes the answer is yes. And she is here to share the science, the stories, and the strategies behind using creativity as a powerful tool for well being. So, who is Leigh Hodges, you ask? Well, she is a creative empowerment coach. She's an author, poet, and host of Your Creative Chord podcast, which we will share for you in the show notes as well. And with over 30 years in music education, performance, and composition, Leigh creates midlife women, caregivers, overwhelmed professionals, burned out creatives, and the creatively curious reconnect with their potential, especially when you're facing burnout, boundary challenges, creative blocks, or life transitions like we just talked about. Lee's creative empowerment coaching program guides clients in setting healthy boundaries, rediscovering their authentic voice, practicing self-compassion, and building sustainable creative flow for greater wellness and inspired living. She has a couple of books, Start Piano, What You Need for Successful Learning, and Kaleidoscope of the Heart, which is a book of poetry and lyrics. And they offer insights on creativity and music to support holistic wellness. She also shares practical tools through her free inspirational bookmark trio, which we're going to tell you how to get at the end, and leads the Creative Flow and Inspired Living Facebook group for ongoing inspiration and support. So wherever you're listening, tune in to the rhythm and color of today's conversation, and hopefully we will inspire some of your creativity. So let's welcome Jenny to Boomer Banter. Hello, Leigh.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It was lovely to hear that and to be here with you today on your wonderful show.
Well, I am so glad to have you. And, I've enjoyed every conversation you and I have had. So
Me too.
let's dive in. So you we talked about some people that don't feel creative, but you've lived a creative life, music, composing, writing, podcasting. So tell me about how creativity has shaped your own journey, especially after 60 and beyond.
Okay, well, before I start, I want to say I have definitely incorporated insights from research and books and other podcasts, but what I'm sharing today comes primarily from my experience as a performer, teacher, author, poet, coach, um, and entrepreneur, and the
Right.
practical strategies that I have tested and refined with real people, including myself, over years of guiding, creative exploration. And speaking of post 60, of course, I lived as a creative my whole life as a pianist, composer, performer. I've taught kids ages 4 to 90. Um,
Wow.
but I actually started my online business and published both of my books right at age 60. I started at age 60. So
Wow.
this is to me a very new way of creating and connecting with people. That we talked about that a little bit backstage. So it's wonderful because I am a live-in caregiver for my 85-year-old mother. So shout out to all caregivers. Take my cyber hug. um, it is definitely a juggle, but it's wonderful because I can work it in. The wonderful, aspect of technology, sometimes wonderful, sometimes you wanna hurl your computer out the window.
Mhm.
But being a
True, true.
work-at-home online entrepreneur, podcaster, coach, I can work with people all over the world while still maintaining a sustainable creative life and wellness for my mom and myself, in that caregiver scenario.
Well, and as you mentioned, I mean, caregiving for your mom is a big part of your daily
Yeah.
routine. So, how has that influenced your perspective on burnout and the need for creativity?
Oh, massively because, I purposely didn't have children. I mean, I taught 600 kids a week and 80-member choruses, and then I would send them home.
You're
And now,
right.
as an adult living with an aging parent, I I feel like I'm the parent often, as I know a lot of caregivers go through. And, the struggle to learn how to be more organized when we want to get out the door. It's not as simple as getting out the door anymore.
It's
You
not.
have to get things together and accommodate her rhythm and her physical ailments or whatever. So it's really taught me the necessity of one of the core pillars that I use in my coaching and all my products and my podcast content is the reset framework, which is about resetting my energy
Mm.
and taking into consideration things like, oh, I now have to accommodate, my mother and her issues. So how I can fit that in and how I can take care of myself so that my creativity is sustainable. That's all part of, the practice and what I do and what I help others do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Huge
and I
influence.
mean, well, like I help my mom, but I don't live with her,
It's a whole
and
nother thing.
well, and I would think so. Like you need to be able to somehow have your own space
Yep.
to do the creative work that is so important to you.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how you figured out the balance and the
Oh,
boundaries around that.
oh, very good question. I did it by nearly burning to the crisp. I figured it out by burnout, and I'm in burnout recovery. And, that's why everything I'm doing is literally lived experience and learning how to navigate that. And so, just through that and in really engaging with others in the creative sphere, I've learned the most critical thing is what we always hear. You've got to take care of yourself first in order to be of use to someone else, especially when you're a caregiver. So I had to really step back. And it's interesting because it goes hand in hand with the creative process because creativity has an ebb and flow to it. You
Hmm.
don't just constantly, if you're any kind of a creator of any sort, you don't just constantly output with no break. I mean, we have heavy seasons of that, and I've just had one, in my business where I'm
With your books.
creating, well, I published 2 books, I built a business, I just finished a bunch of products and setting up the back end and interviews, and so when I have things like
Right.
this, like interviews or setting up all that, then I've learned to shift into the ebb part of ebb and flow
Okay.
and
Okay.
give myself, "Oh, I've learned there is a critical importance," and this is really important for busy caregivers as well, to just have stillness, have that baked into my daily schedule where, for example, my mom has a rhythm where she gets up later, so I make sure I get up earlier. I make sure I proactively protect my night routine to get good sleep, and then I get
Mhm.
up early and do my exercise, my prayer, do my own quiet time, then I'm ready for her, and then I do her things. So it's kind of like stepping back, and this fits in very well. It kind of carried over from my piano learning and teaching days. That part of the ability to excel and progress as a musician is your ability to step back
Mm.
and pause and kind of evaluate what's going on, and then see the bigger picture that way, and then proactively choose how to move forward. It's the same thing, I feel, as a caregiver and business owner and coach, learning to incorporate moments of stillness, learning to incorporate deeply self-compassionate acts, whether it's simply reframing my talk or, like I said, protecting my night routine, my wellness, my autonomy, my getting out and having social moments. You know how Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist's Way,
Right,
used to talk about the importance of having a monthly artist
Artist
date.
date. Uh-huh.
So simple things, and it doesn't have to be that artsy. It could simply be
That's right.
nature immersion, a walk in the park on your own, or
That's right.
visiting an art gallery if you want, or just going to a coffee shop and sitting by yourself and having a moment's peace. Simple
Absolutely.
things that really helps me. I hope that
Yeah.
answered your question.
Well, and it's interesting. I wrote a post and did a show called, the power of the pause. And I think,
Oh, yes.
we tend to forget that because
Mm,
we're
yeah,
so focused on being productive and getting things done. But I
that's
wanted
right.
to shift for a minute,
Mm,
because
sure.
so many people, when you say, "Are you creative?"
Uh,
They're like, no, I don't draw. I
yeah, I've
don't
heard
do
that a lot.
art.
Yeah,
No, I don't do music."
yeah.
Define what creative means for you.
I love you mentioned that because, spoiler alert, you are all creative beings, period.
Period.
Um
Tell me more.
Yeah, and I've heard that so many times from so many, clients and students, and it's just
Mhm.
flat out, myth buster, not true. You are creative. It's inherent. So, okay, so how I would define creativity, to me, it's a daily heart-centered practice or rhythm that I've always naturally just felt it, to foster meaning or authentic self-expression, um, and use self-compassionate care. It's not about perfection, it's not about performance, it's not about technical skill. That's where a lot of people get hung up. Creativity has nothing to do with that. Those are skill building things that we do as creators, but that's not about being creative. Creativity restores your energy. It is like awakens your inner soul. It makes you feel like you're truly in touch, because you are, to your authentic creative voice inside, who you really are, what you really care about. It also restores your resilience if you use it in a way to navigate your life's challenges.
But do I have to be an artist to be
No,
creative?
not at all. It's about connecting to your inner authentic spirit, heart, or voice, and giving that space to live and breathe, and exploring that modality, whatever you choose, whether it's art or music or dance or movement, whatever. It's about being attuned to your own voice, just listening, really. And we're back to that pause. That's a really critical part of tapping into your creativity, is learning to step back and pause to hear your voice. And it's creative energy is about, a lot of people think it's about talent, or I can immediately draw something, or I can immediately play something by ear, or whatever. No, it's about problem solving. It's about embracing a unique perspective. It's about trying an experiment or trying something new and seeing where it takes you. And it's about finding value-based meaning through your own life, through your challenges, or through celebrating moments. And I want to also stress, because I know a lot of your audience is, they're caregivers or they're overwhelmed or whatever. Creativity does not have to be yet another task or a to-do thing on your list.
Yes,
Yeah.
please highlight that. Yeah,
It
because that I don't
yes.
want another task. Thank you very much.
Exactly, and that's where I think a lot of people get hung up. It can be integrated gently, again, back to that self-compassionate piece, into your daily life as just short rituals. I would call them rituals rather than routines because that elevates it in the
Mhm.
importance to your soul, to what your spirit's needing. It's simple things like taking time, like I just talked to you a bit before we got on here. I went for a walk in the park with my mom, and we spent time finding simple, ordinary moments of beauty,
Mm.
butterflies or plants, and just recognizing them and relishing in their textures and colors and shapes. It's like breathing, practicing breathing, mindfulness, doing things like the dishes and just tuning out everything but the actions, practicing mindfulness. These things kind of restore your creative energy and help you attune to it. It helps you find your voice. And it also, I want to stress, it can be seasonal because like we said, a lot of us are busy and there's an ebb and a flow to creativity. And so sometimes the ebb, not sometimes, always, the ebb is just as fruitful as the flow part or the
Mhm.
creative action or the output. So there are things that you can do, like there are practical and spiritual practices that go hand in hand with creative practices that nurture and sustain your own creative flow, help put you in touch with it. Things like nature walks, nature immersion, taking time to pray, or in my case, I'm a Buddhist, so I do a chant. Finding the pause, the stillness in your day, even if it's a 5-minute pause, taking that moment of stillness or reflection. I want to say too, I had a friend, a guest that I had featured on your Creative Chord podcast a while back. She's a caregiver for her aging mother who has dementia. She's a business writer by day. And when her mom was going through all of this, for her own sanity, she would just take time out in the hospital and start journaling and started writing poetry about what
Mm.
she was feeling towards her mother, towards the experience. And that ended up becoming, a purpose for her, like a mission for her. She now has a podcast, Let the
Yeah,
Rest Flow, and features that. But you don't have to, you know, you don't have to turn creativity into a big, thing. It can just be simple, light practices throughout your day. It's the act of, you know, bringing something new into existence, whether you're building a skill like piano learning or taking drawing classes or exploring things like taking nature photography and just exploring the world. A
yeah,
creative life really requires both of these things, the replenishment practices that I just talked about, the stillness, the reset, and
right.
the direct act of creating.
Yeah.
And
And I think it's important for us to do both, to redefine also what,
yeah,
like if we take that pause, if we do that mindfulness dishwashing or, walk in nature or
yeah,
any of those calming things, like one of my routines is to journal every morning,
yep,
or
yeah,
most mornings. It's not, I,
right,
I have to be realistic, right?
right,
Sometimes it
right,
doesn't
flexible.
happen,
That's right.
right? But just the act of taking that time to do that, I think helps to clear your brain and
Yep,
kind of refresh
yes.
yourself for other thinking. Um,
Because it helps you get in touch with and feel, and that helps you release that emotion. That's a part of getting in touch with your creative, authentic voice. And I think we're so accustomed to go, go, go and ignore your feelings that what you're doing there is a journal practice so critical for us for our own, creative wellness overall is you're getting in touch with you're stopping the train, so to speak, and just really getting in touch with what you really feel. And that act of listening and reflecting, releasing emotions, that is a restorative, practice for creative flow in itself.
so you have done a lot of research about this, Jenny Lee, and about what the impact is of creativity on our brain health and our mental health. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I've incorporated insights from research and books and other things, but what I'm sharing today primarily comes from my own experience as a performer and teacher and coach. and working with many people. But for example, in my Start Piano: What You Need for Successful Learning book, I did dive into some research about that, and the cool thing about, shout out to piano learners everywhere, piano learning specifically, as opposed to art making or dance or something else creative. The research that I show in my book found that piano learning specifically boosted the cognitive function and all of these other wellness benefits, like boosting your mood, your resilience, and therefore harmony in your relationships, your cognitive function. It prolongs oral skills, the ability to hear better as you age.
Hmm.
It boosts your eye-hand coordination, your independence, your mobility, because these are like learning the piano is a very complex layered skill building long-term activity. And so
Mhm.
through all of that learning, even if you're starting from scratch as, a new adult in your 80s or 90s or whatever, all of these benefits are shown to work, especially and specifically for aging adults who learn piano, which I think is
That's
so awesome.
interesting.
It's
Yeah,
more
that's
so than even
interesting.
art or other forms of creativity.
Huh.
I think that's so cool.
That is cool. That is cool. So, I know we've talked about it in the past that I need to get back to my piano, but it's another conversation. So as a creative empowerment coach,
Yeah.
why would somebody seek you out? What are they trying to accomplish?
Well, sorry, I'm not gonna let you slide on that. I'm gonna say, as far as your piano thing goes, I wanna emphasize this because a lot of people think, just shout out to your effort. People might not know, but you actually played the piano through 8th grade,
I
and you
did.
haven't touched it for a while, and there's a lot of returning adult learners in that same scenario. Don't make it into a mountain. It's like, use habit stacking to start incorporating just short bursts, 5 to 10 minutes of, sitting at the piano and just doodling on it or looking at a piece of music. Just start in a small way. Those little moments, it doesn't take much. Literally, the research proves it doesn't take much, 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, for that to rejuvenate all of those wellness benefits that I just said. And it also helps you get motivated to go further and to get a little more committed to it. So sorry, I just had to.
That's okay. That's okay. When I sit down and try to play for Elise and it doesn't just flow like it used to, I'm like, "Oh, okay, forget it."
Yes, that's why shout out to me, my piano specific episodes on your Creative Chord podcast. I have multiple, and there were some of my most popular podcasts, multiple podcasts that talk about that, the mindset and the strategies when you're returning to practice, how to make it not frustrating, how to make progress, how to do it successfully where you feel joy, not ah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just redirecting. But as a coach, as a creative empowerment coach, I focus on practical, everyday strategies that fit into our busy lives, especially caregivers and creators and burnout, because I'm on my own burnout recovery journey. So it's lived in real time experience. And I emphasize, like I mentioned, a reset framework. I have an inspirational bookmark trio that I designed, and they're basically the concepts of each of these bookmarks. This is the Reset Your Energy and Creative Flow bookmark, for example. These are the basis for all of my coaching and my products, leading up to that. And they're actually featured in a freebie that I have called Creative Empowerment Sampler. It's just a guidebook based on these concepts. So if you're curious, we'll give that to you in the links and at the end. But
Yes.
I emphasize the reset framework first before the other two bookmark concepts, because it's about energy restoration, and most of us need that. It's about self-compassion, and most of us need that. And prioritizing essentials, setting boundaries, and navigating what happens when you do that, because
Mhm.
many of us, like myself, come from dysfunctional backgrounds, and so boundary setting is a new terrain, and we need to learn how to navigate it well. And all of this impacts creative block, or those negative voices about our lack of creativity. That's where
Mhm.
that comes from, basically. So nurturing yourself, leaning on support, that's my reset, framework. And like I mentioned, I emphasize things like stillness and self-care, meditation, yoga, whatever you can do, ride a bike, attend a concert, listen to podcasts like Boomer Banter, and listening to
Or your
music,
creative
or
chord.
yes, or you're great. Thank you. Thank you. Or I call it time on the shelf. Make sure you have time on the shelf for yourself. And these are actually really critical first steps in this reset framework to spark creativity, not additional tasks. And that's really important, especially if you're in burnout or burnout recovery. Um, and then I do things through, the keys to nurture creativity. I cover concepts that are, again, research backed, proven for myself and other creators, that nurture your creativity, and things like finding what you enjoy the most, what nourishes you, what your interests are, and tuning into your own creative voice and spirit, and just taking that pause to really attune to it. And it doesn't take much. Like I said, research proves that 5 minutes of this a day makes a huge impact on
It's
your
amazing.
wellness and all
It's
of that.
amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yes. And so, just carrying on with that idea, it reminds me of, I'm a Buddhist. I've practiced Buddhism for 39 years, and my mentor,
Wow.
Daisaku Ikeda, talked about so critical to become people who have a poetic spirit. So do things like, if you can't take a walk at night, just sitting out on your patio, looking up, gazing at the moon, and having a conversation with the moon and nature, just short moments like that. It brings the humanity alive, and that's what fuels creative, energy.
What about that just made me think having a
Yeah.
conversation with the moon. What about getting in touch with that child side of you, where we
Yeah.
used to be creative? We made stories up. We played with our
Yes.
dolls or our trucks or whatever we
Yes.
played with.
Yes.
We would lie in the grass and look at clouds and see all kinds of shapes.
Yes.
Like,
That's funny because mom and I, when we drive, we still do that.
do
We
you
look
really?
at clouds, it's like
You're
she's
supposed to
like,
be
"That looks like."
watching the road, Jenny Lee.
Well, not me, my mom. Good point. Stop. I'm gonna stop. Okay. Anyway, I'm glad you mentioned that because yes, the playful side of it, that's part of my creative exploration flow concepts of that part of the inspirational bookmark trio concepts. These are all in my coaching and the creative empowerment sampler. And what this part of this does that ties into that is learning to navigate that inner critic. And part of that is learning again to tune into that playful, childlike exploration, just for fun sake, spirit that is critical to that. But part of getting to that, your childlike, innocent, purity spirit is letting go of that inner critic. And there are ways that I help people learn
Yeah,
that
oh, you
through that
do.
through that
Okay.
formula, basically.
So
Yeah.
you teach people to say yes instead of saying no all the time.
Well, that's part of the boundaries in the reset
Oh, that's
framework.
the other
Yeah.
side, the
Yeah.
other part.
Yeah.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
so many parts to this.
Well, but it's a simple, self-paced, self-compassionate based start where you are. That's why starting on your energy first is where we start. And then getting into that creative exploration formula, that's where you get to play and have fun and learn to let go of that inner critic. And it's just a very simple guide, and it's very easy to access. It's step by step. You take it as you can in bits and pieces. It, you know.
So do you feel comfortable sharing some stories about some people you've worked with and how working with you or how they found creativity or how it turned their lives around?
Well, okay, off the top of my head, many people, as I mentioned earlier, have had many students and clients feel completely disconnected from any level of creative, uh, energy or talent. They've literally been the opposite, like self-depreciating,
Mhm.
self-slandering, not believing in their own ability um to do whatever the creative thing, that they want to do. And through working with me, it really is, kind of a self-awareness journey where you start to recognize, oh, these are just layers of things that have been, told to me by society or culture, and we peel those away and
Mhm.
start to recognize, especially through that creative exploration formula process, learning how to let go of the inner critic or how to navigate it. And then once that's set us, it's almost like take your head off and set it next to you. He doesn't have to be a part of the process. And then just, when I've taught them to just release that and connect with that, the differences in people, their confidence level, people afraid to perform piano, for example, um, having terrible stage fright, becoming so confident that they relish the next recital and just feeling proud of themselves and getting in touch with that and just finding it because it's basically inside of you, it's inside of each person. And
Right.
once you learn how to navigate inner critic and external voices and set boundaries that protect your creative energy, and then you have some simple tools, to walk through, it's just a self-discovery thing. Pretty much anybody I've worked with has experienced that.
So we all have that inner critic. I mean,
Yes.
whether it's about creativity or our abilities to do a podcast or,
Yeah.
anything, right? We all have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Is there one tip that you could give us to talk to that inner critic and ask it to please stop? Shh, shh,
I love that. Well, that's a great point in itself. And I literally just said this to someone else recently who was asking about that. You can talk back to your inner critic. You can flip it around. Why are you coming at me like this? And play devil's advocate. Okay, you're saying that I can't do whatever or I'm no good at whatever. Well, what about this? What about I did this or I did that? Or what about the fact that I have a curiosity to do this and my curiosity is larger than your criticism? What if I just wanted to? I mean, just talking back to it is the point. You
Mhm.
have to just listen and take it. You can talk back to that inner critic. And I think journaling that is really helpful. If you write out a thought that your inner critic has, and then you can say something in your journal, well, here's the opposite side of that.
Mhm.
Here's the positive points, that I see in that. So I don't believe you because there's proof of the opposite. So that is a really solid way to do that. Just talk back to it.
Yeah, I like that. It's almost like getting back in touch, not all the way to your child, but to being your teenager, when your parents tell you, "No, you can't do that." And you can say, "Oh, yes, I can. I
Yeah,
will
bring
show
out that
you I
rebel.
can,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, bring out the rebel in you. I like that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I have, like, little signs up in my kitchen, like, little empowerment signs that
Yeah,
say,
very good.
"This morning you got up and you can have a great day," that kind of thing,
Yes.
and does it always work? Not 100%, but it still is a way to talk back. It's a
Yes,
way to say, "Yes, I can, and you
yes.
can't stop me."
I like that you do that because it's a great tip to have visual reminders of positive reframing or positive statements and put it around you so you can't miss it. That is a great way to just tune into the positive to, work against the negative. And
Yeah,
yeah, you're right, we all have it. So it's you gotta be proactive, you know?
yeah. So if somebody hasn't picked up a paintbrush or, a journal or played the piano for 20, 30 years, how would you suggest they try to even get started with something like that?
That's great. That's a great question. Well, so for example, just pick one creative modality that you want to explore this week, whether it's music learning or journaling or writing or art or movement, just pick one, or you can pair some together. Like if you want to learn some drawing or painting or sketching, play some music, while you're doing it to mix the two together sort of thing. Just pick what speaks to you, what creative thing you want to, explore or investigate on your own. And then start really simple and just observe your mood and your energy and your clarity and tune into your internal voice or your intent and really listen to it. And if your inner critic's in the way of that, just observe that and go back to really listening for your internal voice or your intent and let that, your voice, your intent, your internal, spirit, let that guide you, not the inner critic part. And
Mhm.
then I would say, if you really want to make it a consistent part of your day, consistency does bring the best benefits. So habit stacking things, like if you want to get back into learning the piano, Wendy, you could start with your morning routine, stack it with, okay, I do it right after I brush my teeth, or I do it right after my morning journaling, or I do it right after dinner, or I do it as a wind down right before bed. Stack it with something that you already do, you know,
Mm.
to, to get that incorporated into your life. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. It can be 5 to 15 minutes and just working it in there. And like I also said earlier, we talked about that artist date. Set a
Mhm.
day or a time frame that you're going to explore it. Like schedule it in your, in your day, in your calendar. And you can consider that artist date thing as an extra incentive. Do something like, if you really love piano, go to a piano concert,
Mhm.
somewhere,
Mhm.
find something that relates to that, that's going to inspire and motivate you. Because I will say, motivation is for the birds. I've never taught any of my students or any of my clients to rely on motivation. You have to set up tools and processes and systems that help you get there. And part of that is the habit stacking, getting yourself inspired by going on an artist date, for example. And then you can do things like pair it with something else, like you said earlier, your journaling. You could you could pair your journaling or your spiritual practice with, and now I do my creative practice. I'm going to go touch the
Mhm.
piano for 5 minutes, or
Yeah. No,
whatever.
and that's helpful. That is helpful to habit stack it, but
Yeah.
what's also helpful is you're telling me I can sit down at the piano for 10 minutes. I don't have to practice for an hour every day
That's hard for your
because
brain, isn't it?
Phew. Yeah, I mean, when I was, 10, 11, 12, I had an extra hour in the
Right,
day,
right, right, right,
Now, I probably do, but I don't feel like I do,
right,
and
right.
so it's overwhelming, and it's a good reason to say, "No, I can't start."
That's because the inner critic, and I totally get that, having been a performer and teacher for 30 years, you think that 1 or 2 hours isn't enough, and that
Mhm,
5 or 10 minutes is ludicrous. But the point is, it's awakening your creative heart. It's
mhm.
awakening your creative spirit. It's showing you that you're committed to, exploring your own creativity again, and you're rebelling against that inner voice that tells you that you're not good enough unless you do an hour or 2 hours. That is rubbish, because you can sit there for an hour or 2 hours and make zero progress. I've had plenty of people have had to guide away from that, as a teacher. The idea is incorporating that time, even if it's 5 to 15, 10 to 15 minutes. Initially, that's all you need to make an impact on wellness and resilience benefits from it. But especially since you've played piano before, even if you're new to it and listening and you want to get into it, you can start with 5 to 15 minutes. But I guarantee you, if you make that a habit stacked, consistent thing, you're going to want more, and it will naturally lead to more, and gradually you'll fit in that 30 minutes or hour, whatever it is that you want to get to. But you
Yeah.
don't start there, because that's an inner critic. That's not a creative heart approach.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is, stack this new habit that I want to incorporate into my life.
Yeah.
And I want to incorporate it into my life
Yeah.
because it makes I'm anticipating that it's going to bring me joy, that it's going to
Yes.
help reduce stress, that it's going to
It's fun.
right, that I'm
It's
going to
fun.
have fun with it
Yeah.
eventually
And
when
it's
I stop
beautiful.
being
Yeah.
critical of how I sound.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's some of that is the shift there,
Yes.
is to incorporate that, and to, like, I talk to people about when they retire, and they're like, "Oh, I should why am I not I don't know what my purpose is," and stuff. I'm like, "Give yourself grace."
Right.
It's not gonna
Yes.
come, like, in 10 minutes.
Right.
Everything takes time and practice and
Yes.
reframing and mm, uh,
Iterating. Yeah.
energizing, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
And I
yes.
think you hit that nail on the head.
Mhm.
We don't find deep meaning and purpose at the snap of a finger. We find it through repetitive, self-compassionate practices for stillness and listening to ourselves. And people aren't used to that. We're used to moving faster and not acknowledging what we feel, what we think, what we want. So the more you practice that, the more you get in tune with that, even starting small, it
Mhm.
grows. It builds on itself. It
It
really does.
absolutely does,
Yeah.
it absolutely does. Before, we wrap up, you've mentioned artist date a couple of times. Can you give a little more clarity on what an artist date is for people that have not read the book?
Oh, yeah. When I read the book 100 years ago, but but I just remember Julia Cameron wrote the book The Artist's Way, and one of the it's a great book. Yeah, it's a good
She has a
idea to.
new one out now, by the way.
Yes, and there's also a revised version of the artist way too that's out there. That's
But she has a
remember the
new one out
knitting?
called You're Never Too Old to Begin
That's
Again.
great for yes, perfect for this. But
Yeah.
the artist date is just and it's great for this stick, tipping your toe slightly in the water of wanting to be creative again. She recommends just pick a day in every month and schedule it in and call it your artist date. And it can be whatever lights you up. So, for example, going to a piano concert might be, if you're interested in piano and you love piano music, finding some local piano concerts and just deciding I'm going to go to that. And you don't have to do it every month, the same thing, but you could do a piano concert. You could go sit in a coffee shop and read a book so that you can meet new people,
Mhm.
and eventually become a fixture if you go on the same day every month and people
Mhm.
start to get to know you. You can go watch a movie,
You
take
can
yourself
go
to
to
a
an art
movie.
show.
You can go to an art gallery, take a
Mhm.
nature walk at a local park, go to the arboretum.
Yeah.
Tons of things that you can do, whatever
And you do it
your
by yourself, right? You do it by
you can do it
yourself.
by yourself. Well, you
This
can
is
also do it
your
with others, but
an artist
her
date. Yeah,
yeah.
her way is you're dating yourself,
Yeah,
basically.
you're bringing it to you for your
Yeah.
own nourishment. Yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah.
can be whatever. If you like dance, you could go to a dance class, sign up for a dance class, or go to a dance concert. If you like theater, go whatever it is. You just go and
Right.
determine that you're going to nourish your own creative interest by going and enjoying it on your own.
And I always appreciate it too because, so many times again, you feel like, okay, I'm gonna go to the farmer's market now and zoom, 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 I'm gonna get what I need.
Yeah,
When you go with the mindset of an artist date,
it's
you're
different.
like
Yeah,
looking at everything, you're looking at the people, you're watching them smile, you're listening to the
absorbing.
music,
Yes,
yes, and it is such a different experience
yes,
when you can go with that
yes,
slowness, I guess, and the ability to absorb what's around you.
yes.
It's really very nice.
That's what I call the reset, that stillness and
Mhm.
absorbing, and that's the ebb and flow where you're
Mm.
you're just taking in life and appreciating and noticing it and paying attention to it, and it does something. Scientifically, it triggers neuropathological,
Brainwave,
pathways in your
yeah.
brain and refreshes your mood and stuff, but even without all that scientific gobbledygook, it res it resets your spirit, it replenishes you. Yeah.
It absolutely does. And Jenny, this has been such an inspiring conversation. So
Oh, I'm
I
glad.
want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay.
Okay. So, how about those of you listening trying something creative this week? Maybe sketch, write, sing, dance, cook a new recipe, plant a new garden, knit, organize your pictures, make a vision board. I mean, whatever sparks you, right? And what I want to suggest is that you plan what you want to do right now while you're inspired after listening to this podcast. And then notice how that creative act makes you feel and how it changes the way you show up the rest of that day. Because creativity is more than art. It's really self-care, as Jenny Leigh has been telling us. Now, if you want to get Jenny Leigh's free inspirational bookmark and learn more about her, tell us how we can do that, Jenny Leigh.
Thank you so much, first of all. My inspirational bookmark trio has been expanded now into the Creative Empowerment Sampler. It's a simple way to restore your energy, navigate creative blocks like that inner critic, and nurture sustainable flow. And you can download my free Creative Empowerment Sampler at yourcreativecord.com/get inspired here. It's just a gentle guide with practical tools to help you get started.
Great. And plus you can find out everything else, all the courses and coaching and everything that Jenny Leigh does, her books and things like that. That's all on that website, and that will be in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, you're thinking, who else needs to hear this? Please share it with them. And if you want to talk with me about how coaching can navigate the transitions that you're in now, we can book a discovery call, 30 minutes just to see where you're at. Would talking and coaching help? or just a brief 30-minute talk is going to set you in the right direction again. So I'm going to put the link in the show notes for that as well. And let's see, before we wrap up, yes, I want to give you a little heads up about next week. So next week, is Labor Day, but Boomer Banter will still be here for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share an encore episode that's one of my favorites from back in 2020. Wow. And it's the inspiring journey of breast cancer survivor Sally Dunbar, who set a bold goal. I mean, a really bold goal, and proved that we're always stronger than we think. So while you're relaxing on the holiday, tune in and be inspired. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss this one. Thank you, Jenny Lee. Thank you again. It's always good talking to you. And thank you all for listening. I appreciated the comments that came in today, and we will see you next week. Bye.